There are 99% of crypto experts who don't really understand crypto. I'm going to show you why today in a way that will change the way you think about the whole market. It's easy to see why huge chances always appear just before everyone wakes up. Just look at what happened with one of the biggest companies in the digital asset space and how even the best traditional financial experts get the basics wrong. And we're in one of those times right now. We just got through a big event yesterday that could really change the market as a whole. This is the first time in MicroStrategy's history that its price has been below 1.0 MNF. It is the company that owns the most Bitcoin in public. MNF just means how does the value of the company's Bitcoin compare to its own value? In this case, the MNF is 2 because the company owns $1 billion worth of Bitcoin and the stock is worth $2 billion. It's worth $1 billion if it trades at that price. MNF is below 1 if it trades for less than $1 billion. This means that buyers value the company less than its assets, which is exactly where we are now. This is important for a simple reason. For the Bitcoin position, MicroStrategy does not have a separate profitable business plan. They borrowed a lot of money to buy a huge amount of Bitcoin. Even if Bitcoin goes up in value much faster than the debt, MicroStrategy still needs a way to make steady money to pay off the debt. They said in public that they would never sell their Bitcoin, but they never set up a way to make money off of it. Now, you have a company whose debts are growing, whose stock price has lost touch with its real value, and whose business engine isn't bringing in any cash. Check out the XRP Mastermind Club if you're serious about getting rich with XRP, creating opportunities that will last for generations, and learning how the best investors organize their thoughts and plans. You also get the XRP Millionaire Blueprint inside. This is where you'll learn how the top 1% are placing themselves, how they think, and the exact steps they take to become a millionaire and change their lives. Plus, as a member, you get special XRP tips every week in the comment below that has been saved. Let's get back to it now. Take a look at this. Someone who borrowed a lot of money, bought Bitcoin with it, and swore they'd never sell it, would eventually have to pay back the loan with the Bitcoin they said they would never sell. This is because they didn't set up any way to make money off of Bitcoin. That's what the market sees as stress. Things aren't hard. It's just math. This is exactly why the NAV falling below 1 is such a strong sign. Investors no longer see MicroStrategy as a top Bitcoin proxy. Instead, they ask themselves, why would I take the extra company risk when I can just buy Bitcoin directly? The market simply tells management they can't do their job when a company trades below its own asset value. This is what has been building up for months in the background. This isn't about Bitcoin itself. MicroStrategy used debt, promised dividends they couldn't keep, and never came up with ways to make money to support their core stance. You're stuck if you have billions of Bitcoin and can't figure out a way to make even a small profit off of it. The debt keeps going around and around, the money doesn't come in, and the pressure keeps building. This is why it's so important to compare them to regular ETFs. There is a Bitcoin ETF that lets investors invest in Bitcoin without taking on any business risk. MicroStrategy isn't an ETF. It is a business. It comes with all the risks that come with running a business, making decisions, having debt, and having a plan. MicroStrategy isn't just a problem for one business. The story is about how the market gets basics wrong when crowd psychology takes over. For years, people paid twice as much for MicroStrategy's Bitcoin just to be known. That only works if everyone in the crowd really believes in the play. But now the market is seeing what the real framework is. Investors want a plan that is clear, well thought out, and reliable. They are also beginning to wonder where the business plan is. That's not a business if the answer is, we hold Bitcoin and hope. Having an item that goes up in value doesn't mean you don't need a real engine that works. This also brings up a very important point. Some businesses went into the digital asset market with a plan. Some people came in without one. Every month, that difference stands out more. Some companies are making systems that can make money with digital assets instead of just hanging on to them. Companies are using cryptocurrency as a tool instead of a prize to show off. Over time, the difference between these two methods gets much bigger. While all of that is going on, something else happened this week that perfectly shows why 99% of people, even high-level executives, don't really understand crypto technology. Here's where things start to seem almost impossible. That's because when the head of digital assets at a big company shows public confusion about something as basic as fee structure, settlement design, and incentive models on blockchains, it shows how few people understand this technology and how many only understand the bank world from before it. That's the exact reason why early users keep getting benefits. It's not that technology is hard to understand. To understand how it works, most people who are trained in the old system find it too hard to change the way they think. An example of this mistake that stands out the most was said in public this week. A big company's head of digital assets asked what the point of the XRP ledger was since there are no agents taking fees. That kind of comment shows how early it is still. There shouldn't be agents in a settlement network who take money from users. Blockchain's whole point is to get rid of needless problems. It's a big sign when someone asks why a decentralized settlement layer isn't charging people a lot of money. They are still tied to the old ways of doing business with money. This is the kind of misunderstanding that shows why crypto still has so many huge possibilities. Not because of noise or hype, but because the market stays wrongly priced longer when even the most powerful institutions get it wrong. That's where informed investors build asymmetric advantages when prices are wrong. The next thing that happened made the point even stronger. The person who asked what the XRP system was for also said there was no way an XRP ETF could exist. Almost right away, though, another company came out with one. In the end, that ETF did better than any other ETF that company had ever made. That difference says it all. It's not always the people with the most traditional power and the biggest venues who understand what these networks were made for. They know about fees, middlemen, custodians, legacy structures, and other things that cause conflict. But they don't yet understand speed, efficiency, digital settlement, and direct value transfer, which is worth. These are the reasons why a lot of standard experts still get networks like XRP incorrectly. They look at everything through the lens of old rewards. Because that's how the financial system has always worked. Networks should charge people fees in their world. Someone is always taking a cut in their world. In their world, brokers are just a given. So when they see a decentralized system that was built from the ground up to get rid of these inefficiencies, they think it doesn't have a purpose because it doesn't extract anything. But the goal is to get rid of extraction. This is the same misunderstanding that led many early experts to think the internet would not be as important as it was. They thought about it in terms of the systems they already knew. That's why this is such an important time in the crypto market. The old world and the world of digital natives are coming together. Those who understand the technology, not just the price charts, are the ones who can see the big change currently taking place. The crypto market does more than just make new products. Slowly, piece by piece, the old settlement base is being replaced. Watching how MicroStrategy's Navi acts at the same time shows how the market responds when facts and trust clash. The market always goes back to the same simple truth when you take away everything else. Value moves away from systems that aren't clear and toward systems that are. MicroStrategy is right in the middle of that right now. They have a huge amount of Bitcoin, but they also owe money, their debt is growing, and they don't have a clear plan for making money from the assets they own. Bitcoin isn't being punished by investors. They are questioning the system that it is built on. Take a look at networks like XRP, on the other hand. They were made so that people could live there. Real, smooth settlement, where money goes quickly and without any problems or middlemen. If you build a settlement layer right, it doesn't need to increase supply to award miners. It's not necessary to charge users extra fees. You don't need a third party to help you through the process. Putting the old system on a computer screen isn't what blockchain infrastructure is all about. It's to get rid of all the problems with the old method. That's why a lot of people who aren't in the crypto native space get these networks wrong. They think there is no value in having a middleman. They think that low fees don't mean anything. They think that if the deal is quick, there is nothing to extract, but they don't understand what peace is for. Settlement isn't supposed to be a place where people can get money. Settlement is what makes the market possible. A settlement layer needs to be quick, effective, uniform, and fair. Its best quality is that it can't be seen. It gets less important as the system it helps grows. So, the argument about whether XRP needs reward systems or return extraction is not at all about what is important. Users aren't made valuable by being taxed on a payment network. The value comes from the fact that money can move easily across countries. Settlement that is quick and cheap makes the economy grow. The economy moves more slowly when settlement is hard to do and costs a lot. That's why asking who benefits from low fees is the exact wrong thing to do. Access, usability, and scalability are good for both users and network players. Not by putting in place forced middleman systems. That's the whole big step forward. But this misunderstanding also shows why people who buy digital goods early often do better. Because while most people argue about simple measures, tech-savvy people can see how a stronger base is being built, and institutions will finally use that as their base. It's not the noise on social media, the wrong ideas from experts who haven't read the paperwork, or the assumptions made by people who are still thinking about the old financial grid. Look at what's going on in the world from a distance. Payment networks are getting better, markets are becoming more modern, and tokenization is speeding up. All of the big banks are looking into things faster. Rails for digital. There are also settlement layers at the bottom of all of this. The layers of settlement are like the lifeblood. They're not meant to be the restaurant that makes money off of guests. They're the roads that people use. They don't need toll booths everywhere. They need to work quickly. This is where the difference is most clear. Bitcoin was made with miners, rewards, and high prices at scale on purpose. It has a totally different type. It's a valuable object that can be stored and has a layer of incentives that charge high fees to keep the network safe. It's not a bug when a Bitcoin exchange takes a long time or costs a lot of money. It's built in that way. The way the rewards are set up encourages that. People who mine get paid in the form of fees and block awards. By design, then, the network needs constant data collection from users in order to work. Look at the XRP log next to that. For transaction sorting, there is no one else to choose from. There is no reason to take something valuable from people. Clearance of transactions is always quick. The network was made for settlement, not for fancy fee rounds. A lot of people in traditional banking still don't get this. They look at networks through the lens of infrastructure that has been around for decades, and they think that anything that doesn't have a way to take data must be less valuable economically. But that's not what happened. A settlement layer can work at a large scale better if it doesn't ask people for too much. Now we're back to the question of why the mistake is important. It shows how early the market is when institutional speakers say things in public that are completely wrong about what a settlement network is for. It shows how much room there is for people who already understand the basics. At first glance, adoption curves may seem slow, but this is because the loudest speakers are often the ones who don't understand technology well. In this area is where the chance is, because the market always fixes itself in the end. In the end, usefulness talks louder than confusion. In the end, economy wins out over friction. And in the end, the networks that were built for real settlement come out on top. Not guessing is enough to see that. You just need to know how systems change when technology is better than organization. That change is already taking place. It's clear when liquidity channels open. It's seen when institutions try tokenization. It's clear in pilots who fly across borders. It can be seen in the move toward global payment networks that work in real time. As all of this keeps happening, the MicroStrategy situation stands out as a clear difference. One company built up a huge asset position without putting together a way to make money off of it. A lot of blockchains built their motivation systems around getting things instead of being efficient. Still, the more recent layers of infrastructure that were built for real population are doing exactly what they were meant to do. This is not advice about money. There is a bigger difference between what people think these networks do and what they actually do as the misunderstanding spreads through the standard financial world. This gap is pretty big. It's very big. It changes how institutions spend their money, how analysts value networks, how lawmakers handle digital assets, and how the public sees the whole ecosystem. This is the most important part, though. For people who really understand digital payment technology, the gap is one of the best chances to make money. The current argument about value accrual is a great example of this kind of confusion. A lot of experts only look at networks through the lens of, does the token collect yield? Or does the system give me something? But for settlement layers, that structure doesn't work the same way. It's not possible for settlement levels to give you yield the way that a bond does. The goal is for them to be the base. It's what everything else is built on. Not mining, but use is what gives them value. As more people use them, the network gets stronger. There is value in the rails when more money moves through them and they become more a part of the financial system. That's because they think that since a network doesn't pay yield directly, it doesn't have a way to increase demand or become more useful. But that's not how buildings and roads work. The land around a highway doesn't pay you yield, but it does become much more valuable. A port doesn't pay return, but trade goes through the roof because it's there. The whole financial system works better with a fast, neutral settlement layer because it doesn't charge people a lot of fees. In turn, that efficiency brings in more traffic, more use, and more trust. It becomes a part of the world's banking system. Most people don't get this part. Getting money from people who use a settlement layer is not what makes it valuable. It comes from letting trillions of dollars worth of real-world value flow through it without any problems. When settlement works well, cash rises. When liquidity grows, so do the assets that make it possible for liquidity to grow. Value doesn't grow because of benefits. It comes from utility times the size of the world. It's possible to see this shift happen right now. Most experts didn't think tokenization would happen as quickly as it is. Internal token tracks are being tried out by banks. It usually takes days for assets to clear, but institutions are looking into fast settlement for those assets. Cross-border payment methods that can move money quickly are being looked at by governments. Communities that take a long time to build are giving way to networks that work very quickly. This is the reason why these arguments about fees, rewards, or protocol return have no bearing on the bigger picture. The payment layers that last the longest won't be the ones that take the most money from users. They will be the ones that make it easiest for institutions to handle huge amounts of value. Large companies don't want networks that cost a lot of money to use. Minor validators and middlemen who take money from every exchange are not what they want in a network. They don't want unknown traffic jams. That's what they want. They want things to end. They want to be trusted. A payment layer that works like the financial system's backbone is what they want. It is stable, reliable, and effective. This is why the confusion about these networks is so dangerous for people who trust what the mass media says. When traditionalists see low fees, they think the value is also low. Cryptocurrency experts can spot low fees and the best payment layer. These are two very different ways of looking at the same design trait. And the crazy part? The people who have the most power over how others see things are the ones who miss the most. They are comparing today's digital settlement networks to ones that were made in the 1970s and 1980s, systems that use agents in every step of the process. Systems that add drag at every step were looked at. Systems where slow settlement was not only okay, but also impossible to avoid. So when they see a network where deals are completed instantly and without any problems, they think something is missing. But it doesn't lack anything. It gets rid of everything that isn't needed. And this is the part where the people who really understand what's going on get rewarded. Because the chance window stays open longer every time a traditional analyst gets the goal of a decentralized settlement layer wrong. The people who are early adopters get more time every time an institution pushes old ideas. For people who know the basics, the benefit grows every time the old system gets the new system wrong. In every cycle, this is why people who take the time to understand how these networks work always do better than people who just look at charts or news. The news stories are almost always behind the times. The charts only show what most people think they know. But what about the building? There, you can see the future long before the rest of the crowd does. This isn't just about XRP, Bitcoin, or any other currency. It's about the world change going on below the surface of the whole system. Settlement layers with the least amount of contact win. Layers of settlement that work on a world scale win. Settlement levels that make finality clear-cut win. Layers of settlement that get rid of brokers win. Structures for settlement that institutions can use without worrying about overcrowding or pulling out money win. When you zoom out, you can see this. The world is moving towards settling disputes across countries in real time. Value is becoming more and more digital around the world. Tokenization is becoming more common for things that used to have to be handled slowly and by hand. When those assets start to move around the world, they will settle on lines that are made for speed, efficiency, and fairness. This is why the argument about how to give rewards is so out of date. This is the reason why protocol taxes are so important for settlement networks. Settlement levels aren't supposed to make users money by making their supply bigger. They are meant to make the world's money supply more liquid and lessen problems. How much the system they support grows shows how valuable they are. And right now, the world's banking system is getting ready for an expansion that will need rails that are faster than anything we have now. The big picture is easy to understand. The secret base of global liquidity is becoming the settlement layers. A lot of people won't notice this change until it's pretty much built in. Most experts will still be arguing about how to set fees a long time after businesses, institutions, and governments have built on top of the settlement systems that work well. Early users, or people who really understand the technology, will already be in place by the time the rest of the world sees how big this change is. This is the point where understanding makes people different. Not top secret knowledge, insider tips, or rumors, just to understand. Figuring out why quick settlement is important. Knowing why it's important to have low fees. Figuring out why cutting out middlemen is important. Being aware of why global liquidity routes are important. To have huge long-term value, you need to understand why infrastructure layers don't need complicated reward systems. These days, the chances to see the building before everyone else does, getting to see the settlement plan first, before anyone else does, and then seeing the liquidity built on top of it. Seeing how efficient something is before the market sets a price on it. In this way, changes in technology work. The first few years are full of confusion, fights, and not knowing what is going on. When you look back, everything makes sense after adoption. People at the top of big financial companies are telling the public how early we really are because there is still a lot of confusion. When a big company's head of digital assets gets the reason of a settlement network wrong, it doesn't show that the network is weak. Instead, it shows that the market still doesn't fully understand what's going to happen. This is the reason why knowledge and being clear are more important than ever. As it stands, you are already well ahead of most people if you know the basics. And if most people still don't get settlement networks, you're still ahead of the curve in a way that most people won't understand until years from now.